Nobody wants to Oh, I just thank you
I know they put a sign in there.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Or late afternoon, whatever you call it. My name is Jan Watts. I am the president of the League of Women Voters of the Flint area. And the Flint area encompasses the counties of Genesee, Lapeer, and Tuscola. So that's why we're having this here tonight. I'm pleased to welcome the candidates for the Lapeer City mayoral election. Brian Cartier, Jeremy Hing, and Mindy Schwab. We just put their first names because we're going to be real informal. The event is being recorded by at least 2 sources. The league, which is that video camera, and this one, as after this forum tonight, the forum will be posted on the league's Facebook page and also the league's YouTube channel. So the other videotaping is a candidate's personal videotaper. The questions that are going to be asked this evening are from the League of Women Voters Candidate Forum Guide, which is establishes kind of rules and procedures. They also have a very good section on types of candidates, types of questions for types of candidates. So there's a section on mayoral, city council, county commissioner, all of those sorts of things. We hope to have time at the end to answer any questions from the audience. But what we'd like you to do is we would like you to grab a card at the table and pencils and write your questions down. And probably around 7 o'clock, we'll collect the cards. And we have a couple of league members who are going to kind of compile them if there's duplicates or screen them if there's inappropriate questions. We've never had inappropriate questions, but you never know. So be ready. If you want to ask a question, please make sure to write it down. And then those questions will be given to our moderator, who will actually ask the questions. I would like to also introduce the helpers who are making this evening possible. My co-host, Joanne Royce, she's a newbie in the league. This is her first candidate forum, and she and I worked together on it when she wasn't on that 2-week vacation in Europe. We worked together on the rules and the information that we sent out. Our moderator, Andy Watchhorn, he's a league member, lives in Genesee County. Our videographer, Karen Basheko, in the back, and also this camera. Timekeeper, the one with the red and the yellow cards, is Crystal Dillard. And then we had people that greeted you when you came this evening, Susan Beal and Kathy Watchhorn. There they are. Okay. And they'll be collecting the cards. The League of Women Voters is a national organization whose mission is to promote political responsibility through informed and active participation of citizens in government. The League neither endorses nor opposes candidates or political parties. We are open to anyone 16 and older, and even though it's called the League of Women Voters, we encourage men to join us. Yes. On the table, I just want to mention, usually when we come to things like this is an educational presentation, but we have a couple of pieces of information over there that you might like to pick up on your way out. One of them is our league brochure. Tells us who we are, what we do, and encourage you to join us. The second thing is just general voter information about registering and early voting and voting at the polls and all of that. Basic voter information. The third thing that we're really trying to get the word out right now is this flyer, which is know what you sign. Right now, there are 9 potential ballot proposals on the November 2026 ballot, if they get the appropriate amount of signatures. If you use this flyer, either go on the QR code or the website to go to the League of Michigan. It's information only on all those ballot proposals. What they really will do, what they say, because a lot of times you'll be asked to sign a petition, and you don't have a whole lot of time to understand what that ballot proposal means. So I encourage you to pick this up and go to that website and look at what all those proposals might be. We don't know if there are going to be 9 on the November 2026 ballot. There's a lot of signatures that have to be gotten. So I encourage you to take one of those. I would like to introduce the moderator. And when he sent me his biography, it was like a little overwhelming, actually.
I'm sorry about that.
Andy Watchorn is a lecturer at Kettering University in Industrial Manufacturing Engineering. In addition to teaching in IME, he also teaches mechatronic systems, mechanical, electrical, and computer engineering and automation across the university. He holds an MSE in mobility systems from Kettering and bachelor's degree in engineering, physics, and music education from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. He is currently pursuing his PhD in engineering education at Purdue University. Beyond his academic pursuits, evidently he has some free time. He worked beyond his academic pursuits. He worked for 20 years at the National Instruments in roles including applications engineer, field sales engineer, district sales development manager, and academic business development manager. He also worked at General Motors as a co-op in product development and manufacturing systems engineering. You can see why I had trouble getting through this. From 1993 to 2000. Currently a resident of Flint, Michigan, owns several businesses there, and in his spare time, he sings with the Carolyn Maudie Chorale at the U of M Flint, correct? Is that where it is? Yes. So, the format for the evening has been established by the league and has been reviewed by the candidates prior to tonight's forum. The moderator will ask each candidate, they'll have 2 minutes for an opening statement, and after each question, there will be 2 minutes for a response. He will rotate so that not the same person always goes first. The timekeeper will hold up a yellow card when 30 seconds are remaining and a red card when time is up. Candidate may finish the sentence that they're currently on. They know the rules about telling us what you are going to do for the city of Lapeer, and no attacks, personal attacks on any other candidates. About 30 minutes, as I mentioned, 30 minutes before the end, we'll be collecting cards. So if you have a question that you would like, we have quite a few questions that we have prepared for Andy to ask this evening, but we always know that there's sometimes a question that maybe didn't get asked. So, without further ado, I will turn it over to our moderator, Andy.
Thanks very much, Jim. So we'll be beginning with 2-minute opening statements from the candidates. They drew lots just recently, and I witnessed it with my own eyes. So it's fairly done, and we will start with an opening statement from Ron.
Yes, I was the lucky number one here.
This close is shade.
Oh, sure. Thank you.
That's not counting against your time.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
Begin.
All right, thank you. Thank you, League of Women's Voters, for having us here this evening. As a public library director, I value what you bring to the table and the information that you bring to the voters. It's very good, solid information that's non-biased, and I value that. So thank you to your group for doing that. I have to say, I have notes with me because I kind of tend to go off on a tangent. Those of you that know me know that I can talk for a long period of time, so it's a good thing when you have a moderator here this evening. My name is Brian Cloutier. I've lived in the city, back in the city of Lapeer, for about 10 years now. I was born here. I did live most of my childhood in Armada, which is a smaller community than Lapeer. So I grew up in Armada, and it wasn't until my freshman year of high school that my family decided we were going to move back to the Lapeer area, where I graduated from Lapeer West. It's hard to talk about a school that's not even there anymore. That being said, I have 30-some years in governmental operations. About 21, 22 of those have been at CEO level, administration and management. I have an extensive background in government operations in terms of local municipalities. When I lived in the village of Oxford, I was first appointed to sit on village council there because we were working through some budgetary issues, and they knew that I was very solid in my budgets at the public library, and they wanted to bring me to the table to help them out. During that time period, I did do that. But let me just share, aside from my experience on village council, I am the current president of the Friends of the Library here. I sit on the Fort County Community Foundation Board. I'm the president of the Northeast Oakland Historical Society in Oxford, and I'm also the president of the Rotary Club there. So I have a lot of civic background experience in addition to government, and it's time that I be able to bring that here to this community to do something good. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
I'm Mindy Schwab. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to the League of Women Voters, and thank you for allowing us to stand, because I have a communications major and I don't even think I can sit in some pulpit at the same time. So I am a wife, a mom, wife for 31 years, mom to 6 girls. We have been residents of Lapeer since 1999, late 1999. We've lived in the downtown area since 2001. I homeschooled our kids for many years. In 2014-15 school year, everybody went into school. We'd had various combinations, and everyone went into public school in that school year. When I was involved in homeschooling, I was very involved in homeschooling circles, and when our kids were in public school, I was actively involved in each school and the district as a whole. In 2012, I got a little part-time job that God really blessed, and I started in 2012. In 2014, they made me the manager, and in 2015, I bought the business. So I've been a business owner for almost 10 years now. In 2019, we bought the building that the business is housed in. The business is professional alcohol and substance screening. When I prayed for a job, I never thought to say that I didn't want to handle urine as part of the job. But there we are. So in 2023, I made a suggestion to Jim Alt, and you know how things go. You make a suggestion and you ask to be involved, and I joined the DDA in 2023. I love it. I love serving the community, and so I am running for mayor, not from a place of being unhappy, but because I love serving our community, and I want to see what is best for the community and play a role in that.
Thank you, Mindy. Jeremy.
Yes, thank you for inviting us all here tonight to speak with you. And I originally thought that we were only going to have 1 minute to speak, so I prepared a very concise statement, and I'm going to go a little off track now and not hold my breath trying to beat the 1 minute timer now. So I first moved here in 1990 and spent that summer living above the shops on Pine and Nipissing with my grandmother. My uncle, the late Tony Maxud, who was affectionately known as Mr. Christmas, loved this community. And every winter, he'd hire me and my cousin to put the Christmas lights up downtown. It was a little different back then. Things were simpler, trees were smaller. It only took 2 teenagers and a ladder to get the job done, and a lot of hot coffee, or hot chocolate, right? But what mattered most was what my uncle was teaching me at that time. And that was the heart behind it. It was the pride in our town and the care for our neighbors. And that meant a lot to me. It had a big impact on me. My wife, the love of my life, is here. Was born and raised here in Lapeer. In fact, she graduated Lapeer West as well. I myself graduated from Lapeer East, which is still open. After my wife and I married and started our family, we spent several years overseas as missionaries, leading education, community development, and disaster relief projects. We later founded a nonprofit serving survivors of human trafficking. And when it came time to return to the U.S., we could have gone anywhere in the world, really, but we chose Lapeer. This city gave me my roots and shaped my values. I'm running because I want to give back, to help Lapeer grow, while keeping the town's small heart that's always made it special to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. The first question is going to be for Mindy, but I do want to explain for the audience briefly that the yellow card will go up when there's 30 seconds left, and the red card goes up when we have to conclude. Mindy, describe your qualifications related to budgets and policies and your engagement in local government. Please be specific about your public service on committees, commissions, and/or attendance at council meetings.
So my husband's a pastor, and we have 6 kids, so there's a lot of my budget experience. I also run a small business that while everybody thinks that, oh, you own a business, you must be rich, we are not rich. I've managed that successfully for 10 years, including throughout the COVID pandemic, when I looked back and saw that there were 2 months where literally all we brought in was enough to keep the building payment made and the utilities on. I've been involved with the DDA, and on the DDA, everybody has to sit on 2 committees. I'm on the placemaking committee and on the business development committee. I also just recently got placed on the executive board, so I'm technically the secretary. And because of that, that is what got me started going to city commission meetings and watching them, paying attention to the decisions that were being made in the community, things like that. So I've also been involved before my time on the DDA. I was involved in every parent advisory committee in every school. And when you have 6 kids, for a while we had every layer or every level of schools covered. I was on the board or on the building PACs, and I was also in the district-wide PAC representing the whole district. I have been a pastor's wife. My husband is a pastor of Lapeer Community Church. I've run the refuge at our church for many, many years. I am a mentor mom for our moms group, and I stay actively involved. And I believe that if you're part of a community, you need to be involved in the community. It doesn't make sense to be part of a community and just sit.
Thank you, Mindy. I'd also, just to make you aware, the order will switch somewhere in the middle a couple times. I have an engineering degree, so I figured all this out at the beginning. The next question, the same question will go to Jeremy. And just so you know, all of these questions have a 2-minute time limit on. Jeremy,
Do you mind repeating?
Yeah, sure. Describe your qualifications related to budgets and policies and your engagement in local government. Please be specific about your public service on committees, commissions, and/or attendance at council meetings.
All right. So I'm going to start with the budget and qualifications there and policy. For almost a decade, I spent time overseas, as I mentioned, and a lot of what we did in disaster relief and community development had to do with logistics, forming budgets, putting human resources together, working with the foreign governments in that context, which is very difficult because rules change constantly, and getting everything approved and then making it all happen. And that is no small feat when you're doing it in a second language and you're doing it with parties that are coming from multiple territories. Now, in terms of local involvement and how that would translate, I've been involved with the city, coming to council meetings ever since we bought our home in Andrews Rivers as a citizen. Not as a member of the council or on any committee, special committee or anything like that, because I ran into some problems and I was willing to step forward, not just for myself, but for my neighbors. There was multiple problems, and I'm not going to get into details because that doesn't matter. But I've gone over the past few years to a handful of the meetings, and then more recently, every meeting that I can attend, and then started going backwards and watching videos of meetings that I was never at, just so I could get a feel for what was going on, what shaped certain decisions that we're currently living with. And so that's what fuels me, is doing the research, talking to people, listening, and then taking action. And that's what I'm running for. Thank you.
Brian, would you like maybe repeat the question?
I think I have it.
Okay.
Thank you. I guess we're standing up. So I'll stand up. So, as I mentioned earlier, my day job is a public administrator. So I run the Oxford Public Library. I have a several $1 million budget that I'm responsible for developing, taking to my board, having it adopted, and then implementing it with my management team, and then making sure that we stay within that budget throughout the year. Aside from that, I do sit on the 4 County Community Foundation Board. It used to be in Elmont, it's now in Romeo. We have, I don't know, probably about $20 to $25 million worth of assets that we're responsible for from a foundation nonprofit perspective. And I oversee the governance side of that. I don't do the budget because it's not my responsibility there, but I oversee their operations and make sure that we're good stewards of the money. Sitting on governmental commissions and boards, over the years I've been coming to the city commission meetings for about the last 8 to 10 years off and on. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, but there's a lot of good. There's more good than bad and ugly. So the work that needs to be done is, it's within the eye of the beholder, I guess you could say. That being said, I do currently sit on the Zoning Board of Appeals here. I chaired the Planning Commission in Oxford. I chaired the DDA Design Committee. My committee was responsible for the streetscape redesign of the downtown of Oxford when we went through with MDOT. So I understand all of the inner workings of government and those budgetary restrictions that fall within it. Over the last 20-some years as a library administrator, I have been a very sound steward of the taxpayer dollars. My responsibility is to bring us in at or if not below budget, and also maintain a fund balance that will allow us to not have to raise taxes when we have to reinvest in critical infrastructure.
Thank you, Brian. Jeremy, this next question is for you first. How would you help promote a healthy community?
As somebody who co-runs a nonprofit, one of the things that we've learned has been effective in communities, especially when you're trying to do restorative impact in work. Even when we were out of country, it's the same answer. It comes down to advocacy that's authentic. The type of care that means that you're going to invest in relationships, in listening. And then once you have a pulse for what it is that you're hearing and what the need truly is, then acting on it and bringing the resources, bringing the education, bringing the communication and transparency that is required in order to motivate communities to buy into what the leadership is trying to accomplish and support that. there should be transparency as well as accountability. I would advocate for that. I would advocate for clear communications and transparency, accountability at the leadership level, and for outlets or inlets for the community to be heard, and then not only heard, but that their needs are acted upon.
Thank you, Jeremy. Brian, the same question to you. Would you like me to repeat it? How would you help promote a healthy community?
In many ways, I think a healthy community is one that is economically viable. I think a healthy community is one that has good planning and zoning. A lot of our issues that we have today in this city, the critical issues that we're dealing with are from, dare I say it, poor planning and zoning. I have an extensive background in planning and zoning and laying out communities, putting things where they belong. And I think the quality of life in our city is diminished by poor planning and zoning. Really, as a public servant, my life and my career has been listening to people and working with people that I don't always agree with. But the critical component there is being able to do less talking and more listening to be able to build a community that works for everybody. Our quality of life is important here. I'm accustomed to a high quality of life. And when I moved back to the city of Lapeer, there are certain elements here that are great about family values and small town feeling, but there are other elements of quality of life that we're neglecting here. And I think we seriously have to have a dialogue about what that looks like and how we incorporate all of the good elements into play. So I think it starts with the leadership. So.
Thank you, Brian. Mindy?
One of the things I have already been thinking of doing is the current mayor and city manager Womack have attempted with moderate to low success to start a group called the Community Heart and Soul, which is a group that is focused on meeting people, finding out what their interests are, and developing a grassroots way to achieve those things. I would like to spend some time doing that. I'm already well connected to business leaders and to governmental leaders, and one of my first things I would do if I was elected mayor is I would like to sit down with each department head and hopefully their departments as well, get to know them a little bit, find out what their needs are, find out what their concerns are, and really advocate for them as often as possible, but do the same thing with residents of the city. What are their concerns? What are their needs? And advocate for those. I would see the job of mayor as being a liaison between the city and the residents and having that go both directions and listen to them. I also feel like because I have a strong background in the faith community, I think that is very valuable to me, but also I work with people who have a lot of challenges in life. They have mental health issues. They have drug and alcohol addictions. They've lost their license for whatever reason. I feel like I have a well-rounded background and a lot of experience working with both ends of the spectrum, and I think that would serve me very well as mayor.
Thank you, Mindy. We'll come back to Brian for a question. What do you think is the number one infrastructure issue facing our city?
Only one?
So I was going to say.
Yeah.
You have 2 minutes.
I know. There's the critical infrastructure, and when I say critical infrastructure, I'm talking about like streets and electricity and the things that aren't pretty that go under the streets, right? Like the sewers and the water lines and things of that nature. Those are they're aged out in this city, most of them. And it's going to cost tens of millions of dollars to get that infrastructure back to where it it's It's not gonna be easy, and I'm not gonna sit here and promise you that I can solve all those problems, because quite frankly, none of us as mayor can solve all of those problems. It's gonna take a team of people to solve those problems from all levels of the government and the community, to bring people together in ways that's unimaginable. But needless to say, I have done a very good job at maintaining governmental budgets and putting money into fund reserves every year, large sums of money into fund reserves, building fund reserves by millions of dollars, so that we can fund those critical infrastructure needs without raising tax dollars. I also understand, unlike my cohorts here, although I have utmost respect for them, I understand how government bonds work. I understand how the municipal budgets work. I understand, and not that they can't learn that, they can learn that, but I understand that. So the training wheels are off with me, because we don't need training wheels. These are things that just come natural because it's what I do for a living. So I think that I'm best suited to help us find the ways and means to bring the money that we need together, and bring people together and corporations together and other government and nonprofit sectors together to be able to maintain the infrastructure that we have to fix here, because it's a lot bigger than you would imagine it is.
I agree with Brian in terms of the aging infrastructure. Just this week, behind my building, they spent time replacing a sewer line, which meant that for a business that relies on bathrooms, when you don't have bathrooms for a day, we lost the ability to do business for a day. But it was, to me, preferable to have it planned and done now when the weather is nice than to have it done when it's -4 as an emergency in January. So I know we need to be addressing all of those issues. They're not sexy, they're not cool, but we need to do it. I was speaking to some of the staff that was working on it, and they were saying the same thing. The infrastructure under the streets is shot, so we need to pay attention to those things. As a business and a building owner downtown, and also as a downtown resident, when the building next to the Pix was on fire, we stood in my dad's apartment and watched the fire, because he lived at the corner of Law and Court Street, and we could feel the heat coming off the building. Everybody cares about the buildings when they are quite literally on fire. We need to care about them beforehand, and that means when we were talking about infrastructure, we need to make sure that we're not thinking what is best for right now. We need to be thinking long-term and setting things up well for the future. Obviously, 20, 30 years from now, codes are going to change, but we need to be thinking about it now. I would love to see more buildings, see the city work with current building owners to start working on getting fire suppression in places that don't currently have it. There are buildings that don't have fire suppression, and we're not able to use the upper levels for things like housing and things because there is no fire suppression. We need building owners who are willing to invest more than just the bare minimum, and the city needs to work on them.
Thank you, Mindy. Chairman.
Answer this question a little bit differently than one might expect. I'm going to say I don't know what the exact first most important physical infrastructure issue is until I get into a role where I can actually see the information on that. It's obvious to this common person, the citizen, that we have a lot of infrastructure that's failing, that's outdated and needs to be repaired or replaced. So I'm not going to pick one particular thing. What I will say is probably the most important infrastructure issue that needs to be addressed in the city. As mayor, I would like to spearhead this and advocate for it, is the leadership and the experience behind prioritizing those infrastructure needs. I think that prioritization has been failing recently. And we have people who are actually really good at doing their jobs, but they have no direction or priority. Our city manager, Mike Womack, is very well experienced and very intellectual regarding these topics. He knows how to manage budgets, and he knows exactly where to get government funding from and how to manage those things. He also knows how to get funding from other sources. And we need to leverage that in a way. It's like you need to aim and shoot. But you need to aim in the right direction, and right now we're missing that, and that's the number one priority, especially when it comes to infrastructure issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Mindy, the next question is for you. Switching directions both figuratively and we'll start asking questions in the other way. What are the priority issues and important challenges facing our community, and how would you address them if elected?
I think one of the biggest issues we have right now is housing. I was at the housing planning meeting, and there were people who said we need more high-end housing. They are correct. More people said we need more mid-range missing middle housing. They are also correct, and more people said that we need more low-income housing, and they are also correct. We need to stop our tribalism, I guess, is what comes to mind, and stop fighting for just our way of seeing things, and we need to be better at collaborating and looking at creative ways to do all of those things. And you can't talk about housing without discussing the homeless issue. There is an increasing issue with homelessness, and I think we've got to address that. I think there are people on all sides of the political spectrum who care about this issue. And I think we need to start looking for creative ways to address this. We are not going to solve this. We're not going to be the community who fixes the homeless issue once and for all and everybody models things after us. But we do need to start thinking about it, because we need to find things that work for the homeless without hurting the homeowners and without hurting businesses. I saw one day walking to the bank, somebody sleeping on a park bench. By the time I came back, they were gone. I don't fault the business for not wanting them there, but they do need a place to go. I think we need to cross party lines, cross faith lines, and we all need to work together to find a non-denominational year-round homeless shelter.
Thank you, Mindy. Brian, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yeah, please.
What are the priority issues and important challenges facing our community, and how would you address them?
Sure, I have to agree with a lot of what Mindy has said. We do have a severe homelessness issue in this community, and I'm not sure I have the answers to that. But if I'm given the opportunity to become mayor, I'll certainly work with folks who are better suited to help me understand that. That being said, there are a number of issues that we're dealing with here in the city, and I think you touched on it briefly. One of the things that concerns me most is, I see a city that's so politically divided, and it doesn't need to be this way. It doesn't need to be this way. This is a nonpartisan seat. It doesn't matter if you have a D or an R after your name. I don't care. I just want you to be a good person. It doesn't have to be me in this seat, but I want a good person in this seat. And I want someone who understands that we serve everybody. We serve everybody. And part of the issue that we have right now is we have my way is better than your way. Well, let's find out how we can make my way and your way one way. That's something I deal with on a daily basis in government. And it's something that we have to address. I think that if we are able to come together as one community and serve each other and respect each other, nothing's insurmountable for us. I think we'll be able to accomplish great things together. But this political divisiveness has to stop.
Thank you, Brian. Chairman.
So, the things that I think are the top priority issues and how would I address them, I've already outlined in my platform issues on my campaign page and hand out my material. The number one at the top of that, because I feel like if we can get underneath that, some of the other things would be a little easier to tackle. And the first one is the divisiveness inside of the leadership, which both of these have already talked about. That's been number one for me since all the way back to June or July. And I have these platform issues outlined. That's exactly what I've come up against as a citizen going to the city hall meetings, And so that's important to me. And I have experience in working with groups that don't see eye to eye or even speak the same language, and they need mediators. My wife and I, we do counseling for families specifically that have a background in trafficking victims. But there's a lot of mediation that has to happen, and that just needs to stop. The other priorities that I have are, of course, infrastructure, which we've already talked about. I've also talked a little bit at other forums about the homelessness. It has come up, and it is very important, and I have a compassionate heart for that. I do have some suggestions for that. I've written some white papers on this. I've written some articles on this. I've posted them on my campaign page. One of the things I think we could do better is to find compassion with dignity for that population and community buy-in and support. Good neighbor agreements, because a lot of the complaints coming in the forums is that the service providers are not respecting the neighborhood's wishes and their ability to enjoy their own properties, amongst other things, but my time is up, so I'll sit down now.
Actually, you get to stand up again as we have one more time for you, and this will happen to every candidate once. Yeah, so just so you know, I'm keeping track. How will you learn what's on the mind of residents, and what are your ideas to make every part of our community feel they are fairly and adequately represented?
So, learning is going out and meeting people and sitting with them authentically, genuinely, listening and caring about what it is that they're saying, even if you don't agree. During this campaign, myself and others have been going out and door knocking and meeting people and sitting on their porches, and when we don't have time because we have some time constraints or we're trying to get a certain amount of houses in a certain period of time, I always take down names and numbers and emails, and I follow back up with them. And you know, it's amazing the things that you find. I once thought that it was apathy and empathy, which is the reason why we don't have much participation from the citizens in local politics. But it turns out that they've tried, and they were condescended to at City Hall, or they weren't listened to, or their things were shuffled under a rug and not followed up on. And some of the ideas I have in terms of ensuring that there are good outlets or inlets for the community to be heard and then be communicated back with, even if nothing's going to happen, it's good to know that you were heard. And so I have some ideas about that, and we can leverage technology in order to do that. And we can leverage other areas that we're using for communication better than we currently are. I just saw an article in the newspaper about leaf pickup a couple weeks ago that a friend of mine had brought to my attention, and it was the most confusing thing I had ever read about a service that has been around for years and functioned just fine until the last 2 years, and now it's gotten more complicated and nothing's really changed other than leadership. But the city workers, they do such a great job. They just need, again, back to the analogy, we just need guidance and direction to aim and shoot correctly. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Mindy, would you like to introduce that?
Yes.
How will you learn what's on the mind of residents, and what are your ideas to make every part of our community feel they are fairly and adequately represented?
I think that this is something I've already been working towards, and I think that is something that I will continue. I want to be, if I win, a very accessible mayor, very open to hearing from the people, very available to them, meeting people in different places, hearing them, hearing what they have to say. And I do agree with Jeremy. There might be times that there is not a fix or there's not an easy solution. I think it's okay to say, I hear what you're saying, I will make it known to people, but I don't know that we'll be able to fix that. As I said earlier, I think one of the key roles, at least for me, would be as a liaison between the city and the residents and vice versa. I think the city already does a lot of things like surveys and trying to find out different ideas that the citizens have, different information about events. I think the city already does a lot of that. I don't, maybe it's working, maybe it isn't, but I think just being accessible to people and having them know that I am willing to listen to what they have to say. Going to places like the Refuge, like the Golden Arrow, but also meeting with business people. I'm already on the business development committee, meeting with different business owners and leaders in the community. I think I'm already pretty well positioned in those things. So, that's what I'm gonna say about that.
Brian?
Honestly, if you read the article in the paper about all of us, we have a lot of similarities. So it's like, how can I say the same thing that they're saying, only different? So I'm not going to, right? You know, I mean, we're very similar in a lot of ways, which is a good thing, because that means that we understand collectively what we can do to make this city better. I can tell you that I have never, I'm one that, people who know me well know that I don't sugarcoat it. If it's bad, I'm going to tell you it's bad. And if there's a solution to the problem, and I know what that solution is, we're going to talk about how we can make that solution work. One thing I don't do is claim that I have an answer when I don't have an answer. I don't do that. I'm going to be very forthcoming with you. There's a misconception about the role and responsibility of what a mayor actually does in a city this size versus a city like Detroit. We're not the administrator. We're not administration. We don't even get to vote unless it's a situation where there's a tie. So the mayor in this city, in terms of communication, it's essential that that individual be able to help the commission understand what their roles and responsibilities are and help them execute those roles and responsibilities effectively and efficiently. It's important that they help the administration understand what their roles and responsibilities are and give them the tools and resources to be able to execute that efficiently. And then bring other people together to be able to move the city forward in a positive way. At the end of the day, I'm a very active person. I'm out in the community. I'm at so many different meetings, both here and in the community I work in. I'm always out and about, and I'm very approachable. So if you see me at a restaurant and you want to chat, sit down across the table from me, and I welcome that opportunity. As long as we can have a back and forth respectful dialogue, I'm open.
Ryan, this is your.
Okay.
You'd like to now sit down. How well is our community meeting the needs of seniors, and what more needs to be done?
That's a very good question. I mean, I know that we have some methods of transportation available to seniors. My work on Foundation Board does a lot of grant making to communities who need to help provide different quality services to senior citizens. Now, I don't sit on the Foundation Board here, but I'm sure that they have ways and means to make that happen here as well. Affordable housing is important. It's critical, I think, piece with seniors today. I'm not going to say I can offer you health care because I can't. That's not what a mayor does, right? But I think it's a quality of life. It's making sure that things are affordable, and it's maintaining a respect for each other, maintaining a city that works for everybody. But obviously, there's a, when I say infrastructure, I don't mean like streets and things of that nature, but there's another component of infrastructure that works in government to help provide different services to senior populations. And they're all of those, it's not the city's responsibility to create those services, but it is the city's responsibility to be that conduit from all of those different agencies within the community that provide those services. Let's not reinvent the wheel here, right? We have agencies that already provide those services very well. Am I red? Okay, good. I haven't been looking that way. So we have agencies that already provide those services. I'm yellow. Very well. So the important component there is to just make sure that the city understands where all of those services are, what they are, and how we can bridge that gap between making all of those available to everyone within the community.
Thank you, Brian. Chairman, would you like to answer the question?
Yes, please.
How well is our community meeting the needs of seniors, and what more needs to be done?
in terms of my own personal conversations with seniors, which is very limited, they seem to be having their needs met. And again, to piggyback on what Brian's saying, it's not the city's job to develop services, but to be a conduit. And I think that that's an apt question, and there's not much more to elaborate on that. But if it were to come to my attention that the city wasn't meeting a certain population's needs adequately, then that is an issue worth raising at City Hall. And that would be something that, again, in that role, you can be an advocate for and make sure you connect the right parties and bring services in, or at least refer to services out that are nearby. Some of that can happen with community, our neighboring communities and neighboring counties. Not all of our issues need to be addressed internally inside of city limits. We have a broader county, and then we have neighboring counties and cities. Some of them are doing some of these things really well, and we can do well to learn from them or even work in tandem with them. We don't need to be a silo. It takes a lot of people to do a lot of these things in the community. That's why it's called community. We're not on an island. Thank you.
I almost feel like we're asking the wrong question when we ask how we're meeting the needs of seniors, and I feel like we would be better served to ask the families of the seniors how well we are meeting their needs. I know at the housing meeting that was a month or so ago, one of the things that came up was a greater need for zero entry or handicapped access in homes. We do need to be building living spaces that are suitable for seniors, but also at some point baby boomers are going to be not needing those, to put it nicely. And so are those still going to be a suitable choice for families that maybe don't need it? So we need to be thinking long term about what we need right now, but also down the road. I know that we offer certain things like GLTA and transportation services. Are they being fully utilized? There are gaps in the service times, the deliveries, the transportation schedules. What needs do people find day in, day out? Are these, rides to doctor's appointments? What are the gaps? We need to be asking the people caring for the seniors what needs they have, because I think sometimes they're going to be more forthright with where they're seeing gaps in things. I think we do already offer a lot of services if people choose to take care of them, and obviously we can't, or take advantage of them. Obviously we can't force people to do that, but we need to let people know they are there. Do I just need to stay up?
Nope.
Is it my turn?
Nope.
Okay.
This is question 9 to 10. We will get there.
Okay.
Brian, this one's for you first. How do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process in our city?
Sure. Before I answer that, I just want to say that, to go back to the other question quickly, there's this thing called CDBG funds. Those of you in government understand them, and for those of you that aren't in government, they're funds that the city can allocate for projects to help seniors, and that's a critical component to what the government can do to help seniors with projects they might have at their home, for that matter. Now, the question again was,
how do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process in our city?
Sure. I think that open communication through proper channels and even on the street, having those candid conversations is a key component to that. I have extensive background in governmental strategic planning, and I think if you do strategic planning properly, it can be a very impactful, very meaningful tool to give the city some direction, how to move forward into solving some of these issues that we're talking about this evening. Planning, but it's getting the right people in the room at the right time to be able to help facilitate that process that's key there, because we have a collective knowledge here, and it's quite an extensive collective knowledge just right here between the three of us. But if we expand that out into this room, it's even greater, right? But there are also people who actually have more knowledge than any of us in this room on how to solve these problems. And I'm a firm believer that you need to ask for help when you need help, and you need to bring the right people to the table. If you're able to do that and admit that you don't have the answers, instead of trying to solve the problem with a makeshift solution, you get much better results.
Mindy, the same question to you.
Yes, could you repeat it, please?
How do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process in our city?
I think one of the things I have already been trying to do is get people to pay attention. Some people spend hours and hours every day watching their national news source. Could you give an hour a week or 2 hours a week to watching, there's a fly in the room and it's driving me to watching our local meetings. You know, you don't have to show up on a Monday night at 6:30. You can watch on the YouTube channel, you can watch live, you can watch later. So start paying attention is one of the things that I want. Because I think once people start paying attention, they will know, they'll see things that are like, what, I didn't know that, or they'll like it, they'll be incensed, whatever, but they need to pay attention and they need to have some sort of emotional reaction to it. I think people don't realize, and this is one of the things I would like to start shouting from the rooftops, you have a quirky little talent. At the meeting with the Tea Party, there was a man who stood up and he was asking about internet access and things. If I'm your tech support person, we are in dire trouble because I don't know tech support, but he would be a great person to get involved on a city or county level, figuring out solutions to make sure that everybody has access to the technology they need. All those quirky little things that you have interest in that you don't know what to do with, there's probably a place for you serving at a city or county level. You just have to know that it's needed and you have to know who to talk to. So I would love to come up with a way to connect people and their interests and their abilities with the people who have know-how or who need the know-how.
Thank you, Mindy. Jeremy?
Something that I've learned that's very effective in involving community in the decision-making process in anything is, first and foremost, you have to provide a safe platform for them to be heard. And I think the obvious answer in a city context is City Hall. I mean, that's what town meetings are. But we've not nurtured a safe environment for the people to be heard for such a long period of time, to where exactly that story I shared earlier, I thought apathy and ignorance was the problem, but it's not. It's that they gave up. They still care, but they're not being heard. And so we start there. And the other thing that I've learned in working with people in communities, empowering communities, I've spent a lot of time empowering communities and mentoring individuals in my trades. And I've found that holding them accountable just as much as I want to hold leadership accountable is key. When I find somebody telling me all about a problem or complaining or whatever, I ask them. I learned this question a long time ago. I ask them, are you part of the problem or are you part of the solution? And they look at me. And if they can't say one or the other, then I say, all you're doing is complaining. You have to be accountable just as much as you want leaders to be accountable. And so that's my take on it. And I appreciate it. Yeah, I part there.
Thank you, Jeremy. The next question is for Mindy. A city council seat is traditionally nonpartisan. Some think partisanship has crept into our local races. Is that a fair statement? What would you do to address that?
Many people have already asked me that. How would you handle the city commission? And I do think that a lot of party politics have crept in. And I think it would merit constant reminders that this is a nonpartisan seat. And the thing that needs to be focused on is not supporting your party. But you are here to support the benefit of the city. What is in the city's best interest, what is in the residents' best interest. I think we can't hammer that home enough. We have to keep on focusing on that. I feel like one of the things that does make me a great choice for a mayor is I'm not strongly affiliated with either party. If they started a moderate party, I would be so happy to sign up for that. I don't align myself strongly with either party, and I think that is a huge asset to the mayoral seat and to the community, because my top concern is the community as a whole. There's a Bible verse in Jeremiah 29:7, I believe it is, and it talks about working for the peace and prosperity of the city we live in, and that I want to keep at the very front of my mind, win or lose, no matter how I am serving in my community. I want to keep the peace and prosperity of the city right in front of me all the time.
Thank you, Minnie. Jeremy, would you like the question again?
Yes, please.
A city council seat is traditionally nonpartisan. Some think partisanship has crept into our local races. Is this a fair statement? What would you do to address that?
I think it is a fair statement. I think that we have seen that, not just in our own city, but in all local politics. If you just watch the news, we have things going on all over our state, our country for that matter. So I think it is a fair statement. I don't think it's the same everywhere. I think it varies in degree, and some of that has to do with the people in those communities, whether they can hold their leadership accountable, or those leaders themselves, and how unbalanced or tilted that might be. Those are personal decisions to let your politics creep into something like that. Fortunately, for me, I'm truly nonpartisan in the sense that I'm not either party on paper, and I've prided myself in that all of my adult life. And I do tend to do that with lots of groups. Reading a little bit about some psychology on extroverts and introverts, I discovered that there's a new classification that's being written in the journals these days called an introvert, and they tend not to go with tribal mentality. They also don't pick sports teams and things like that, and I've never done that either. And they fit in with a lot of people in a lot of different demographics and situations, cultures, and thank God for my multicultural background. And the work that I've done. And that allows me to kind of march to my own drum and make decisions for myself. In that vein, I think in leadership in a nonpartisan role, the thing that we have to remember is that we're not here to serve ourselves or serve a particular groupthink mindset, but we're here to serve the needs of the citizens, the residents of our city. We're at service to them, and that's something I have a lot of background in, is being a servant leader in just about everything I've been involved in, and I've made some tremendous impact today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Brian?
So you kind of know where I stand on that already, because I kind of touched on it. But I'm not going to pull people out in the room, but I'm going to say that there are some commissioners here this evening, and I think they will probably say that, yes, Brian, you have done this. I've gone to city commission meetings when they've been seated, and I have stood at the podium and said, you have congratulations on your appointment or your election. And you have a great deal of work ahead of you. It's an important job, and sometimes it's very thankless. But that being said, regardless of what your political background is, whether you have an R or a D or an I or whatever after your name, I don't care. And truth be told, most of the people in this city don't care too. You have to remember that you are here to serve everyone. It is a nonpartisan seat. Some people can't understand that, but I'll certainly help them understand that. Like I said, I don't beat around the bush, and I call people when they need to be called. And we need to stop the division. We absolutely need to stop the division. Where I fall on the political spectrum, some of you know, but it's irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant, because at the end of the day, I am a firm believer that I serve everybody. I haven't spent the last 30 years of my career in public service with the mindset that I'm only going to serve the people who agree with me. If I had done that, I wouldn't be the Rotarian that I am today. I wouldn't be a Paul Harris Fellow. These are things that I take very serious. These are things that, in order to accomplish this point in my life, I would not have been able to do that without fully being able to bring people together and put my differences aside and work together as teams to build relationships with people that I don't always agree with. That's critical, and I think I've done a very good job at doing that.
Thank you, Brian. Jeremy, what more can the community do to attract and cultivate small businesses, especially to cut the red tape?
So part of the door knocking process is I've gone around to some local small businesses, both downtown and outside of the DDA district. What I find is the problems that they share are practically night and day. Downtown has a different set of problems. And in some respects, it seems a little bit like they have a seat at the table already at City Hall. And those that are not inside of that district tend to feel left out, and that they have to face more bureaucracy than the others. And it's unfortunate that there's that kind of stark contrast between the two. And I've spent time listening to them and what it is that they're having trouble with. And they're silly little things. There's silly little things that just, it's just at the city level, the leadership level, it's just common sense. It doesn't have to be so hard. And I'm not going to share all the different things that I've heard, but there's little things like nitpicking the color of an awning and forcing them to pay for a particular permit or whatever to change that. And these are the types of hardships that they're facing, and they just want to get tenants in, and they're also not able to get tenants in buildings that they own that are vacant because they've heard about these problems, other business owners that are satelliting the city and thinking about where they might set up shop or another branch or something like that, and they want to steer clear. The word on the street is steer clear of Lapeer because of this red tape and the bureaucracy, and we need to change that. We need to figure out where in our process it's broken and fix it.
Thank you, Jeremy. Brian, would you like?
No, I'm actually going to read verbatim what was in the paper of what I said because I think it sums it up. This is a concerted effort of many departmental divisions, the City Commission, its administration, and its various boards and appointments. This includes the DDA and the county's economic development team. Good economic development is an interconnected process. Everyone involved needs to understand the big picture. Healthy economic development includes much more than supporting big box stores, retail, and fast food. These play a role nonetheless. We should also be putting more of an emphasis into investing in our critical infrastructure, developing and expanding our educational support system that in turn helps build our skilled industrial network as well. That is just the beginning of a recipe for better economic development in this community. We've been missing the boat for a long time, folks. And if you think that we're doing it right, you're naive. Because we have some issues in this community when it comes to economic development. I've asked questions of people in high-level government, both the county and the city, on what their plan for economic development was, and it was like chirp, 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 chirp. It's insane. We need to find out what the big picture looks like. We need to all be on the same page. We need to be one team, and if we can accomplish that, again, I'm going to use the same phrase I said earlier. I don't think anything is insurmountable for us, but it's like, wow. I'm blown away sometimes with the answers I get.
Thank you, Brian.
I have strong feelings about this topic. So I've seen various things. I'm going to cite the July 7th meeting at the City Commission level this year, when one of the commissioners said he wanted to table something until July 7th, 3033. And Ramona, the city clerk, said, "I'm sorry, did you say 3033? And he said, "Yes, I did." You cannot do business that way and be seen as a business-friendly community. It was a small business that had changed ownership. They wanted to have a grand opening. That was what they were told, was no. They were allowed to do it, but it was like everybody in the room was aghast at that. You cannot treat businesses that way and be a business-friendly community. One of the other things that I think is that we do need to make sure that the buildings and the spaces that we are renting are suitable for business today. If they need to be upgraded, let's get them upgraded. I hear a lot of people complaining about the landlords they have downtown, the high rents, or the fact that the landlord won't take care of anything. They're making it hard to do business. We need to do something to foster collaboration between the landlords, the tenants, meaning the businesses, the city government. I know there are already things in place where there are some flow charts and things for how to start a business, how to renovate a business, things like this. I don't think they're widely known, but we need to make sure everybody knows how to access these tools and knows how to use them.
And now you're
Now I
back
get
to
to say
back.
it, okay.
That's right. Perhaps you may have strong feelings about this.
I might.
What's more important for our city right now? Building new homes and commercial space, or rehabbing, expanding, better utilizing our existing homes and storefronts?
Yes, both things are important. I just completed this summer a renovation of the interior of our office space. It was an attempt to address some building issues that were there. Hopefully, we'll find out this winter if I don't have ice dams, if my problem or my solution worked. But we need to be spending time. As we worked on the project, I felt like all the previous owners had done the bare minimum. We bought the building from two people who didn't even make it through the land contract before they both died of old age. They have been doing the bare minimum for years. So I do think it's vitally important that we work on improving the current buildings that we have. The city can't do that, but they can work to create less barriers for the building owners. We do also need some new structures. I would like to analyze what space is available in the city. The city is very landlocked. So we might need to work with townships and figure out, where do we put new homes? What kind of new homes are we putting in there? We need to just be thinking thoughtfully, and the important thing is we all need to be listening to each other. I mentioned it earlier, but I want to see the building owners who have second floors that aren't able to be used. How do we empower them to get those spaces fully activated? I think that we need to be investing in the people who are investing in the community. How do we help them? It's always going to be a long process. How do we help make it somewhat easier?
Jeremy, would you like me to repeat the question? Sure. What's more important for our city right now? Building new homes and commercial space, or rehabbing, expanding, better utilizing our existing homes and storefronts?
Well, it seems to me, by looking around the city, that rehabbing and better utilizing the spaces that we currently have would be more of an important priority, so we can focus on infrastructure that we've been neglecting. And the reason I say that is because I've come from an approach of good stewardship of the resources that you have. And I see that a lot of the resources we have here in the city are underutilized. In a lot of cases, are sitting vacant. And it doesn't make sense to build new commercial real estate when we have commercial real estate right here on this road that is empty. In fact, right there is one right out the window. And it's been empty for a long time. And that's part of the recent question of red tape. I spoke with that owner. And that's an owner that has run up against a lot of red tape and just can't get a tenant in there because of it. So it seems a waste to push new projects when we aren't even utilizing what we have or fixing what we have broken. And I think that speaks to part of the problem, prioritization and direction. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Brian?
Thank you. So I'm going to go back to economic development on this. I think if we have good, solid economic development, some of these other issues over time will resolve themselves. Because I'm a firm believer, if you have good economic development, you can walk and chew gum at the same time. What a concept. So I think we can make investments in what we already have, certainly, and I think that's critical. I think, Mr. Heen, you've also made a comment like, let's fix what we have first before, right? I think that's part of your campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, and I agree with you, I think before we go building more stuff, we need to look at the current infrastructure and try to find some resolution to making what we have work. I mean, we have a hard time maintaining what we have, let alone adding more to it. So I totally agree with you on that. But again, in order to make that stuff work, you have to have good economic development. I mean, that's critical. And right now, we just don't have it. We don't have it. And we need to, I'm not saying the people that are responsible for those roles are incapable of getting us there, but they need the tools and the resources made available to them to get us there, if that makes sense. I hope it does, because it makes sense to me. At least in my brain it does. I'm a historian, and I'm all about preserving history. But I'm also about growth, because I understand that good, solid economic growth helps the tax base that supports investment in critical infrastructure. And without that good, solid economic growth, that responsible growth, the tax base is not going to maintain the critical infrastructure without increasing taxes. Let's get real. So it all stems from economic development. That's the key of all of it.
This is the last of the prepared questions, so if the people who are gathering questions can do that, I will entertain other questions after this is done. And this is
If you
to
have a
Jeremy.
question, would you raise your card and? Oh,
You need a card?
If you need
Okay,
a
we'll
card, we
take
can
a
pass them out.
minute or
Sorry,
two
we're
to
just-
pass out cards to people who would like them.
But we do have one more question, so after that's completed, people have gotten what they need. This is Jeremy first. Is transparency an issue in our community's government? Why or why not?
I believe it is. And it's one of the platform issues that I'm standing on. And that comes from just observation and my own experience going to City Hall and running up against issues. And I'll share a personal experience just to drive that point home. And I'm sure I'm not the only one, because as I knock on doors, I find that other people have very similar stories to tell. As I mentioned earlier, I have a few issues in my neighborhood that I'm representing my neighborhood on. We've even had to get legal representation. When I come to the city and ask for information, it's difficult. And I don't get what I expect to get in return when I FOIA things. I get blank papers. I get told that they can't find the files. And then more recently, I was overcharged without being notified, which was out of alignment with state statute. So that to say that another experience, I asked if I could be put on the agenda, and then I was told that I could not. And then I was told that it wasn't that person's decision, it was the mayor's decision, and there was no good reason for it. And I checked all the boxes and went through all the rules of our ordinance and how to get on the agenda. I even submitted my paperwork on time. And so I was being gatekept from being on the agenda on an issue that they had already heard once, but didn't want to hear again, but weren't willing to form a position or take action on it. And so I think, yeah, there is a problem with transparency. There's a lot more than transparency, but yes, that is one of the critical problems that we're facing.
Brian?
I know transparency was part of it, but you're
Oh,
gonna need to
is
read it.
transparency an issue in our community's government? Why or why not?
For me personally, it's not been an issue, but I've heard other people certainly say that transparency is an issue. So I'm not gonna be the naive person in the room and say it's not an issue. I just don't know how severe it is, to be completely honest with you. I can tell you that this is where the mayor is important. The mayor is the top elected official in the community. And he or she sets the stage and the tone. And if administration, and I'm not claiming they are, I'm not making an accusation. What I'm gonna say is if administration is not being transparent, then we need to have a proper mechanism to correct that. If the staff isn't being transparent, then we need to have a proper mechanism to correct that. Obviously, there's a chain of command too, right? So the mayor isn't gonna just go into the office one day and tell the staff you need to be more transparent. It doesn't work that way, and it's disrespectful. So we need to understand what those processes are. We need to understand unilaterally what the structure of this government looks like. We need to be able to listen to the voters in the community and the taxpayers in the community to understand where the lack of transparency or their perceived lack of transparency, because let's face it, folks, in most cases, we go there with an issue. And oftentimes we just want an answer. And we may not be getting the answer we want to hear, and we say they're not being transparent just because it's the answer we don't want to hear. I mean, I haven't been in government for 30 years to not understand that dog and pony show. So I'm here to tell you that it is a little more complicated than we might think, but certainly I do believe in clear transparency all the way, every day, without exception. And as a leader, if you do choose me to be your next mayor, absolutely, I'm going to work with the teams to make sure that we are as transparent as we can possibly be, and make sure that the mechanisms are in place so that people can request information they want to get easily.
Thank you, Brian.
I would say, like Brian, I haven't had issues with it, but I also haven't taken too many issues to City Hall. I will say with my recent experience with the building department was excellent to work with. I had zero issues. They were quite kind, quite helpful with me. But I also do hear other things like that. I think one of the issues that we do need to make sure is a little bit beefed up is I know there are sometimes technological issues on in terms of broadcasting or sharing city commission meetings. I think we're in a day and time where we can, and other commission meetings. I know there was one meeting back in the summer that video worked, the audio did not. I just recently listened to the planning commission, but all I could do was listen because the video wasn't working. All minutes, all agendas, all of those things are online. You can access them, but I will say I have found gaps in that. So I think we need to work on improving that a bit. One of my concerns in terms of communication is not so much transparency, but I am a firm believer that if your verbal message and your nonverbal message don't match, you believe the nonverbal. And I think I have seen many cases where people say, for example, might be saying, I support all the department heads, and that's what their mouths are saying, but their actions and their attitudes aren't supporting that. And I know I've spoken with enough people who are on staff in the city to hear that they feel the same way. They do not feel supported in their jobs because not so much the verbal, but the nonverbal does not indicate support.
Thank you, Mindy. So we have a couple questions that
Anyone else?
have brought up. Now, I'm going to, since I've tried to be as fair as I can about starting, and we now have 30 more minutes of question time potentially to leave you 10 minutes for closing statements. I'm going to let you answer this if you want to, and hopefully we can all be good stewards of other people's time. We'll still have 2 minutes. But, what is good economic development? Everyone want to take that first?
Okay.
Does nobody want to take that?
Well,
You go first, Brian.
I don't think I need to reiterate the plan. I don't know, I think I've already said that.
I'll address it real briefly, just about as brief as Brian, maybe a little more. But Brian has been bringing it up all night. And he has a good point. So the city has been talking recently in some of the meetings about master plan. And it's a little bit getting, like putting the cart in front of the horse, because they haven't developed an economic development plan first. And that's, as Brian has indicated, the center of it. And then you build things around that. But before we even get there, we have issues where nobody knows very clearly and definitively what their roles are. Mindy had mentioned something about talking with some of the city employees and they don't feel supported, but more importantly, many people don't know what they're doing or why. And that's problematic, because you can have a great economic development plan, you can have a great master plan, but if nobody knows how they're supposed to work together or execute it and who's responsible for what, then it's going to fail. And an economic development plan is actually best left for some experts, and we need some outside help for that. We have a guy that the city is talking to as part of those conversations at City Hall and inside some of those agenda packets. But I think that we need more than just one guy. And so that's key.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to add?
I will just briefly touch on this. Jeremy did mention the master plan. I know the city did recently get grant funding to update the master plan, and I think it's vitally important. I've been in a number of committees or spaces where a master plan has been developed, but if you don't go back and revisit it, and if you aren't taking time to really work it, it doesn't do any good. It's just a wasted piece of paper. So we need to make sure that everybody is on the same page. We need to be keeping it in front of us regularly. We need to all be working towards that, because I think what happens is we have one group of people come up with the plan, but then people get voted off, people get fired, city staff and things. How do we always keep that before us so we were all working towards the same goal?
Thank you. Another question. What are your thoughts on outdoor spaces, activities for families and young people to make our city fun? For example, parks, bike trail paths, winter and summer activities held downtown. Okay.
I love the parks in Lapeer. That is one of the things that from the very first time we visited, we liked. So I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Hutchinson, Kansas, and then we lived in Lynchburg, Virginia before we moved here. And that was one of the first things that struck me about this city was the parks. It's one of the reasons we chose to have a teeny tiny yard in the downtown area, because we were within walking distance of so many parks. To me, it is one of the best parts of the city, and we need to show it off as often as we can. I love the Oakdale trails that are being developed. I love the fact that there are so many volunteers who feel so passionately about those. I think that is amazing. I have heard, my husband was out door knocking for me and visited with a lady who said she feels like some of the things that are available, say, through the community center are not accessible to her financially. And so are we considering all levels, all income levels in our activities outside, our things outside? I have seen this as a mom as well. You pay through the nose for club sports, or you don't. But if you don't, your kids don't get the same opportunities in high school and school sports. So how do we create options for families of all income levels? Because right now, there's a lot, it's pretty, upper class heavy. You can either afford it or you can't, and if you can't, you just can't. So how do we build more into that?
Does anyone want to?
Yeah, first, could you repeat the question?
What are your thoughts on outdoor spaces and activities for families and young people to make our city fun? For example, parks, bike trails, paths, winter and summer activities held downtown.
I think that's one of the things that Lapeer is doing really good at. is their Parks and Rec and the availability of the parks and the outdoor spaces and the activities and things downtown. And I love it. And it is something that brings, that also comes to mind for one of the decisions that my wife and I, we have kids too. And why we want to be here and the things that we remember about our childhood, about being here. And so I'm in favor of it. On the flip side of that, it's been a shame that, when we've recently visited some of these parks in town and around, they're not well maintained. And we have some heavy loitering in the tree lines and things like that with transient populations. And I know that there are families that have expressed concern for safety and things. So if we're going to continue to, first of all, preserve these spaces, we need to do it intelligently with care. And we need to care for those spaces too, better than we currently are. And if we're going to grow more of those spaces or develop more of those spaces, then again, we need to do it with some of this looking ahead and realizing, hey, we have some things that we're not really addressing and maintaining well. And if we're going to build more, then do we have a plan? Do we have a plan to go and correct this? And do we have a plan to maintain that? And if we're thinking ahead and we're doing diligently our work, then I'm in favor of more. But I think that we've done a good job with what we have as well.
Brian, do you have anything?
Just briefly, there's not anything that hasn't been said that I don't agree with. We have a good base here already, but to their point, we have some issues with safety and security. We have some issues with things that are outdated, things that are kind of neglected, not intentionally, but by virtue of maybe finances. I don't know what the circumstances are. Before we expand that network, and I'm in favor of that because I love a city that's walkable. I love a city where you can get on your bike and you can ride with the traffic instead of on a sidewalk taking other people's lives in your hands. I'm all about that. And we have a pretty good, I'm saying pretty good. I come from a community that does it right, but we're not comparing apples with apples because the financial wherewithal is much different in Oakland County than it is here, and I understand that. But if we can take our infrastructure that we have now, the parks that we have now, and they are beautiful, they truly are beautiful, and they are gems, and we are making improvements to them. But certainly we need to be able to, whatever we do, we need to be able to financially sustain it, because if you make it and you don't maintain it, then you're just putting good money after bad.
Okay. A question about conflicts of interest. Can each of you tell the audience, and some of you have already described some of these, so you can add to this to get everything out that you want to get out. Can you tell the audience if you or your family members own a business or sit in a leadership position or receiving finances through donations, grants, insurance, or other state and federal services in the following areas: addiction, drugs, books, construction, marijuana, mental health, DEA? There's commentary on the back, but I think that's the beginning of the question. I think that's the heart of the question.
Are we receiving funds for, what's the question again?
If you want to stand up and tell the audience that you are either own a business or sit in a leadership position or receiving finances through donations, grant, insurance, or state or federal services in those areas that I described.
No.
No, you don't want to stand up and tell
No, I
them?
don't want to answer. I mean, I don't understand where that question's coming from.
Do you have conflicts of interest?
No, not at all.
I don't think I do. Obviously, some of the things on there, I am on the DDA. I do not feel like, actually, as a DDA member, or the mayor is required to sit on the DDA. So I am already on there. I don't think I could still be the secretary, but I'm already on the DDA. I would be on the DDA as the mayor. I don't know if this question was directed at me or not. I don't believe working in the court system and, making money. My paychecks are so pitifully small, you would be just shocked, actually, and to see how much money I make from drugs and alcohol testing. And actually, most of the funds that, if there were any governmental funds, that's from the county. And again, it goes to the business, not to me. So, and anything that we get from the state for testing, again, goes to the business, not to me. I'm not lining my pockets with all the dollars from drug and alcohol screening. So, I don't know if that answered the question, but that's
I
my
think that
answer.
answers the question.
Yeah.
And I will also stand up and say, no, I don't sit on any of those committees. I don't own businesses that receive funding from any of those sources. I also, in my campaign, am not receiving any funding from any businesses or entities that are part of the marijuana industry. That's a sore spot for me because one of the problems that I have with the city is the smell that the industry brought in. It's not that the industry exists, but it's that they're impinging on my right to enjoy my property. And I think they were zoned wrongly and allowed to inhabit a particular facility too close to residential zoning. And that's part of the problem. And aside from that, they just don't have control over their filters and their operations, which isn't being enforced properly. So it's a sticking point for me. I do, however, I do, however, think that being involved, I think it's a valid question. I think being involved in any of those areas stands how some of them have already a seat at the table at City Hall. And I think that there's a lot of public opinion. I can see where that question's coming from, because knocking on doors, people think that leadership up there that we're responsible for bringing that industry in, we're having their pockets lined by that industry. So I think it's a valid concern. Whether it's true or not, it's a valid concern because the people are thinking it and they need to freely be able to ask that question and hear an answer. And that's part of being accountable and transparent. But I'm not affiliated with any of those things. Okay.
Thank you. I don't pick them, I just read them. Here, and I'm getting these two out of the way so we can end on a different note. What decisions, if any, that have been made in the city have been politically motivated, in your opinion? And you can feel free to answer or not.
Go ahead.
All right.
I don't think that it has been a decision that has been made. Actually, I have a couple, and some of them have been made, but I know that I only have a 2-minute time limit. So, but the most recent issue is this really interesting special council meeting held at City Hall, out of nowhere, for an affordable housing low-income workshop. But it was titled Housing Workshop. And as Minnie had stated earlier, that, hey, there's people who think we should have, more low income for this or that or senior population. And there's people who feel like we should have mid and some family, young families and maybe even upper, and they're all not wrong. Well, I think that this workshop was a little slanted because it wasn't offering any of them as viable options. It was offering only one, and that was low income affordable housing, which to me seems a little bit politically slanted in one direction, where we see it in other cities and states and things like that, that's an agenda. And it also is attached to ideas of things like 15-minute cities or smart cities, which can be controversial as well. So I think that when you don't provide all the options and you do something out of nowhere seemingly and in a haste, and you want to try to push it almost as if there's going to be an agenda and a decision made, I think that there's more behind it than the people's goodwill and looking out for your community. And I don't think that that type of option is taking into consideration our property values and our tax-based revenue, especially if the city's gonna own it and be the landlords, then we have no tax base coming from that property. And then we can't even manage our own infrastructure, but we wanna be landlords too. So that's one example that I think is politically motivated, but I can't prove that.
Thank you, Jerry. Anybody else want to take it?
I'll just briefly say that I too was at that meeting, and I didn't see anything politically motivated in that meeting. I didn't agree with a lot of the things that were discussed at that meeting, in true fairness. But I didn't see anything inappropriate at that meeting. I didn't see any perceived agendas, at least to my knowledge, at that meeting. I saw a lot of discussion about an issue that we're trying to deal with in this city. Everybody has a different answer to that solution, or a different solution to that question, or whatever, however you want to say that. But at the end of the day, I don't think there was any wrongdoing. In fact, I'm quite confident there was no wrongdoing at that meeting. Whether we agree with it or not is another topic for discussion. And likewise, I didn't care for the discussion itself, but at the end of the day, I don't think there was anything inappropriate there.
I would say that I took something completely different from that meeting, and I would challenge you all, this meeting is on YouTube. You could go watch it for yourself and see what you think, but it was stated a number of times, we're not trying to come up with solutions this evening. We are just brainstorming, we're just talking about things. So I don't think that anybody was trying to set a political agenda and say, this is what we're going to do. That was my take. Now, obviously, we can all watch the same thing and come away with something different. I think one of the things that has been interesting to me is, and this is just a thing I've noticed that I've discussed with my friends, certain topics like the flock cameras that the police department is wanting. There is a lot of debate about those. And if they violate Fourth Amendment rights, or if they are helping preserve safety in the community. And there's kind of a stalemate right now as we are trying to determine what takes precedence, your privacy or your safety. And that is, there's a lot of that going on right now, even in the library system. First Amendment free speech or protecting others, so there's just a lot of the head-butting right now in those kinds of things, and I feel like everybody is busy defending their territory and we aren't able to hear what the other people are saying.
Thank you for answering those two questions. This may be a shorter answer question. Currently, the TIFA gives, that's the TIFA, which you must be aware of, I'm not, gives $200,000 to two organizations for economic development. Would you support an in-house economic planner instead?
Okay, for those of you that I don't have enough time to go into TIFA, tax increment finance authorities, that's like a lecture in and of itself. So I'm not going to go there. But I will say I have no idea, quite honestly, where they're talking about the money going to different entities for economic development. I think there is, I will answer this question though. I think that economic development, as I mentioned, is critical. It's a critical piece to solving a lot of our problems today. And whether it's an internal person or an external person solving that problem is up for negotiation. That being said, I think we have some internal people that are trying to solve that problem right now, and they're not able to get it across the finish line. So I think we need to bring some external people in to help us get it across the finish line. But in terms of the TIFA, or the Tax Increment Finance Authority, yeah, it plays a role in some of that, but not as much as many people would think.
I'm going to stay seated for this because it's fast. I don't know enough about that to give an answer that I would feel confident in, so I would pass.
Yeah. So I agree with a lot of what Ryan said. The question itself, I think, requires a little bit more clarity, because what the funds the TIFA are used for, I'm not sure that the question is asking, would we use the funds to support in-house personnel for economic development or not? Typically, TIFA will come up with a list of priorities that they would like to see. It has to happen inside the zones that the TIFA comes from. It shouldn't cross. There's other things that are part of that process. There's communication to City Hall, which sounds like it's a little bit broken when I talk to some of the TIFA board members. And so there's a little bit of butting heads right now on what's priority with that money. From a city perspective, it's free money. It's coming from a place that isn't our own budget as a city. And who are we to tell them what to do with it? As long as they do what's legal and they cross all the T's and dot all the I's, then, you know, let's try to make this go through. We should be saying yes to them more than we're saying no. But I think we say no a lot because there's a lot of miscommunication, not a lot of cooperation, a lot of misunderstanding, and so we have a lot of headbutting going on. So that's a little bit off of what I think the question is asking, and I still think there needs to be clarity there. But yeah, we need an in-house guy, but we also need exterior help, as I had mentioned before in a previous answer as well.
And the last audience supplied question is: the mayor has no vote on commission. And some of you have already covered a little bit of this too, but feel free to add if you'd like. The mayor has no vote on commission. How do you intend to accomplish all the goals you have spoken about without a vote?
So when I decided to run this race, I really struggled with it because I was sitting on the sidelines, butting heads and fighting an uphill battle. And what I realized that part of the problem, and I've mentioned it's my #1 priority and platform, I've said it time again tonight, is that there's division in leadership. And I think we have a lot of new change coming down the line. And especially you guys have a guest with you tonight, Minnie McCarthy, and she is going to be your city commissioner on November 5th, whether you like it or not. I love her. And she's very intelligent, and she's great to work with. And we get along great. And I think that that's going to be a breath of fresh air in leadership, and hopefully with some unity, whether I win or lose. But one of the things I want to do is unify that leadership. And that comes through influence, relationships, and having genuine impact through listening and caring. Not because you're trying to manipulate, which I see a lot of that up there too, but because you genuinely care about the city and you genuinely care about the people you're working with, whether you agree or not. And that is something that comes from character and integrity and a lot of experience of learning how to do that with diverse mindsets, diverse backgrounds, diverse cultures, and I thrive in that environment. And so my plan is to win through influence, not, I don't have a vote, and that's the only way. And that's a way that I think that I have really thrived in the past, and a lot of things that I already do and have done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Could you repeat the question?
Yes. The mayor has no vote on commission. How do you intend to accomplish all the goals you spoke about without a vote?
As I said earlier, yes, I do know that the mayor has no vote, and I've had people say, why are you running? You don't get a vote. I really think my key focus would be explaining things to people in the community. I know that commissioners already care about what the community wants, what the community thinks. We need people to step up and say what they want and say what they think. Right now, I feel like there's a small portion of the community who is communicating what they want. We need more voices to be heard, and I think I would be a good one to convince people to do that. Step up, say what you want, get involved. That is going to be a focus of mine. And there's that old adage that 20% of the people do 80% of the work. What if we could get it to 25 and 75? Wouldn't that be amazing? I mean, that's like such a small change, but it would make a difference. And what if we could get it to 30 and 70? That is where my heart really is making that change. And I think I have a degree in communication, general communication, which is one of those good for everything and good for nothing degrees. I use it every day. I've never used it professionally. And there's a part of me that's like, oh, maybe I'm gonna get to use it professionally very soon. Wouldn't that be fun? So, and my kids have joked and they're like, well, maybe busting up all those fights for kids over the years will come in handy. You know, sorting out who gets the Barbie plate and who gets the Rapunzel plate may come in handy very soon. So I think that's where I'm going to do well is at garnering people's support and explaining complicated topics in easy to understand ways.
So there's 5 commissioners, you need 3 votes. If you work in administration, you're like, I'm only 3 votes away from getting fired. I will say this. I have my own goals and objectives coming forward, clearly. But each one of those other 5 members of the commission have their own goals and objectives as well. Chances are, I'm going to guess here, but chances are they interconnect at some point, right?
Yes.
So we're probably not very far off in many different ways. In fact, I've had discussions with all of them individually, so I know that we're not far off. We're a clear example that we have common goals and objectives. So at the end of the day, the key element for the mayor is to be able to listen to other people, to be able to provide the guidance that individuals need to make sound decisions, and to understand that we all can find, if we work hard enough, we can find that commonality among us and among our goals and objectives, and we can all accomplish great things together in the city. I'm a firm believer of that, and I believe that we are capable of accomplishing that here.
Thank you. I have made the completely arbitrary decision on closing remarks to start with Jeremy and go backwards through the table because it went the other way first, and I can't make you first and last in minutes. So
Mine will be quick
There you
this
go.
time, and just about as quick as last introductions, because I'm going to ramble a little bit to explain that I thought I had a minute, so I prepared some statements to be concise. So I'll just read it, so I will be quick this time. What I love most about Lapeer is its heart. Neighbors who look out for each other, families who stay connected across generations, in a community that still takes pride in where we live. My experiences from serving abroad to leading projects here at home have taught me that real leadership means listening, building trust, and working together. I'm not running to dwell on what's wrong. I'm running because I believe in what's right about Lapeer, and I want to protect it and strengthen it. I'm Jeremy Hing, and I'd be honored to earn your trust and your vote, to serve the city with integrity, and to help Lapeer's light keep shining bright for the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before I bought my business, I spent a lot of time praying about, is this what I am supposed to do, or is this not what I am supposed to do? And if you are a Christian, you know that sometimes God brings verses to light that you've maybe read a million times. And I mentioned this one earlier in Jeremiah 29:7 about working for the good of the community that you're living in. And that's not it. I'm just paraphrasing, but it is working for the benefit of the community that you are living in. And if you do that, you will also benefit. And so I desperately want to do that. And the reality is, if I lose, I'll keep doing that. I'm not gonna stop serving just because I lost. You know, I'll find other ways to serve. I will keep serving, and I'll keep serving with joy. I love this community, and I care very deeply about it. It's been a good home for us. You know, we've raised our kids here. We have loved living here, and I will keep serving and doing what I'm doing, win or lose. I really care a lot about the residents. I care about all the voices being heard. The small, quiet ones to the big, loud ones. I want everybody to be heard in this community. I care deeply about the needs of those who are less fortunate. I care about business owners. I want to see good for everybody. And I know that probably sounds like all Pollyanna and rose-colored glasses, but it is how I feel.
Thank you.
Some of you see this bee, this pin that I have, it's a bee. Now, bear with me for a moment. Think of yourself as a bee. First of all, this bee symbolizes many leadership philosophies in bringing community together. Community and teamwork. Bees are known for their intricate, cooperative hives. This symbolizes the strength of community and the idea that working together allows great things to be accomplished. Number 2, hard work and dedication. Bees are constantly busy collecting nectar and making honey. This natural behavior symbolizes a strong work ethic, dedication, and persistence. Number 3, prosperity and good fortune. The bee's tireless work results in the sweetness of honey, symbolizing prosperity, abundance, and good fortune. And lastly, number 4, new beginnings. As pollinators, bees are all essential for creating new life and growth in nature. This connects them to themselves. This connects them to themes of fertility, new life, and fresh starts. Think of yourself as a bee. Together, we're a hive. And together, we can make great honey together. But if we continue to be separate from each other and attack each other, we're not accomplishing anything. This community can be a beehive in more ways than one. But I am optimistic that together we're going to make great honey.
Thank you all for coming. I don't know if the league has anything that they want to say in summation. It looks like they do. In the person of Joanne. Go ahead.
I would like to thank the candidates for agreeing to participate in the League of Women Voters candidate forum. Thank you.
For having us.
And thank you to our splendid moderator, Andy. And thank you to the audience. Thank you for being here. And I want you to drive safely. And I want you to remember to vote on or before November 4th. So that's it.
All right.
Of course, of course.
You're going to go to bed. I can't get it for you. I'll go to bed. I almost did it. Long came to the bathroom.